Hey there, pubsters! Welcome to another episode of the Apple Pub. My name's Eman.
And my name's Raphael, and today we'll be covering a lot of stuff. So let's start off today's stuff, starting with a story about Microsoft releasing a new developer tool called Windows Bridge that allows iOS app designers, to easily port their apps straight over to Windows devices.
Yeah, this new CEO Microsoft has, Satya Nadella, who succeeded Steve Ballmer, which was, by the way, probably the worst CEO for Microsoft. This new guy is really putting Microsoft back on the map, getting them much more competitive with their tablets, their software, and now with their Microsoft phone platform. One of their biggest problems was that Microsoft phones didn't have the developer community going for them, so when you got a phone, it was like...
Yeah, you're very lackluster in what you had to use.
It was like a desert. Like, there's nothing, no apps you could download.
They didn't have enough apps, so obviously this is what they're trying to do, is trying to push all those iOS developers to release their apps onto Windows devices.
Yeah, and they already have tons of Amazon apps that got ported over that developers made accessible by both. I think it's 400,000. With Google Play, there's over 1 million apps. Same with iOS, but with this new developer tool, you're going to be expecting to see a much more easier transition. So if you're a developer who made a iOS app, it could easily be transported to Microsoft. And I think that's awesome. Increases competition, and I would like to see Microsoft become more of a force because it'll keep Apple on its toes.
Yeah, definitely.
An interesting new feature for Apple Music. Apparently there's a Beats One replay feature. So you heard about the 3 live radio stations hosted by influential music figures such as Zane Lowe. If you missed those live shows, you could go back later and replay those shows. Kind of like
a podcast.
Yeah. So it's a pretty cool functionality for those who aren't always, there to listen to the show. Just listen to it whenever you want.
Yeah, it's pretty cool. And also announced was that billboards actually started taking into account what people are streaming on Apple Music. Meaning if whatever you stream, before they didn't do this, but whatever you're streaming actually counts towards their top 100 list, their top 200 list. And it's kind of cool that they're updating themselves to kind of catch up with the new world and what people do. Not everyone just purchases music.
Yeah, it's going to be much more accurate and reflecting where music is going and where people are listening to music. So it's really cool.
Yeah.
So Jimmy Iovine did an interview with Wired and Evening Standard recently, and in it he did mention some shortcomings with Apple Music, particularly with the Connect side of things.
Ping.
No, but it is different, and he's trying to say that we are going to have more value brought to this for fans and artists, and apparently they have big plans in the works to bolster that. So that's something to look forward to in case you guys felt that it was a little lackluster. They see that too, and they're working on it.
He also mentioned that he thinks that TV should also have some sort of curation involved as well, mentioning that Netflix is kind of going in the right direction with that, giving you a bit of curation, but he thinks it should be a little more
human,
bolstered, a lot more better quality curation than that. And obviously they're talking a little more about their Apple TV streaming service, which isn't even coming out this fall. We already heard that it's it got postponed again because of deals. So even if this does happen, if Apple does provide this service, it's not going to be until like a bit down the line.
Yeah.
So there was also a couple of smaller stories this week, including the new Beta 5 for watchOS 2, which includes a couple of tweaks as well as a new time lapse.
Yeah, and iOS 9 Beta 5 also was seeded out, and it included some wallpapers as well, and a few additional tweaks, of course.
And apparently Apple is also testing a new service that allows your voicemails to be transcribed, as well as Siri to answer those voicemails with a few custom responses depending on the person who's calling.
Also, Apple was rumored to be becoming a carrier. They were going to be leasing out cell towers and basically becoming like another AT&T or T-Mobile. And rumors were going wild. They've had billions of dollars of cash, and Apple squashed those rumors. And that's pretty much the end of that. All those stories we just mentioned, the last 4 stories,
if you want to catch them, please check out the links in our description below and just read up on whatever you'd like.
The 21.5-inch iMacs are set to be updated in the 3rd quarter of this year, likely in September, according to KGI Securities, which is a very reliable source. This iMac hasn't been updated since late 2013 in September. So it's really good that they're finally going back to this and updating it. new chipset, as well as
A Retina display. We had already seen some information that there was going to be a Retina display update for this version of the iMac. Some code had been found, but again, we had just had the beta 5. Was it the beta 5 release of OS El Capitan?
several releases.
One of the yeah, it's the one that just released on Monday. Also had additional coding found that points to a 4K display for the 21.5-inch iMac.
I think that's pretty cool. The 27-inch gets 5K, the 21.5 gets the 4K. So
Yeah,
I'm really
it's
looking
definitely needed for today's displays, and especially since Apple's a lot of their work is done with graphics and design and stuff like that.
Exactly.
So you really need it.
Display quality is always high.
Yeah.
And we're looking forward to that.
So coming to the end of this week's news, we got some information from nowhereelse.fr again, which is pretty reliable because they seem to be getting all the leaks nowadays. They got an image of a battery that was they found with a 1715 mAh capacity, which kind of doesn't make sense as to what it's supposed to go into, because what is it? It's smaller than what is currently used on the iPhone 6, larger than what's in the 5Cs and 5s. So they're kind of thinking maybe it was placed in there because the Force Touch display is taking up space, so they have to decrease the size of the battery, but with the efficiency tweaks, it's able to continue with the same battery life. But they were also thinking that it might be with the new 6C device that they were talking about releasing, but kind of got canceled. So definitely don't really know what's happening with this battery, just that it is created for Apple because the connector for the battery is similar as to what's being used on the 6. So we'll have to see where this goes into play. But yeah, definitely keep a lookout for that.
We see a lot of things tying together with the iPhone 6s. That's the only really misnomer. We don't know what's going on with the 6C and that battery. But a lot of things coming together, more leaked parts. Also, the KGI Securities, very reliable source again, is saying that by the end of this month, 6S is going to go into mass production, which means that we're going to expect a release date of around mid-September.
Which totally coincides with the fact that the announcement is supposedly going to happen this September the 9th.
Yeah, and I think that falls on a Monday if I'm not mistaken, and it's going to be for the iPhone 6s, the new iPad minis and iPads in general.
The Apple TV.
Apple TV, which I'm looking forward to the most, and wildcard, iPad Pro. It might be the one last thing. There's a chance it won't make the cut to the announcements.
I'm assuming it probably will be there. It has to. They really need to compete with the Surface Pro 4 coming out, as well as the fact that the iMac 21.5-inch or 21.5-inch iMacs are more than likely going to be released at that time.
I could see the iPad Pro being announced. It might be released later on, kind of like with the Apple Watch where it took a few months. Not as long as the Apple Watch, but I could see it taking a few months, whereas every other product will be released in a few weeks. I know Apple's concerned with cannibalization, so the iPhone 6s might come first, and then a few weeks later the iPad minis and the iPad Pros. They're going to definitely try to space them out a little bit, in my opinion, because they won't want it to be, kind of...
Yeah, I get what you mean. So yeah, let us know what you think. What's the device that you're most looking forward to hearing the announcement of for this September? And as always, if you like the video, please subscribe and support the channel. Leave any questions or comments down below of anything you want to hear us talk about. And of course, stay classy.
Take care, Pupsters.